Warden Thalrix watched through the observation window as the human female entered the containment habitat. His scales rippled with anxiety. In all his years managing the Galactic Wildlife Preserve, he'd never seen such recklessness. "She has no weapons," his assistant Mira whispered, her antenna quivering. "No protective gear. Is she insane?" The creature in the habitat was a juvenile Corvath, an apex predator from the death world of Crimson Edge. Even as a cub, it stood 4 feet tall at the shoulder, possessed razor-sharp claws and jaws that could crush titanium. Adult Corvaths had wiped out entire colonies. This one had already mauled 2 remote drones. The human, who'd introduced herself simply as Jackson, walked calmly across the rocky terrain. She wore basic wear clothes and boots, nothing more. The Corvath cub spotted her immediately, its 6 eyes focusing with predatory intensity. "It's going to attack." Thalrix reached for the emergency extraction button. "We need to pull her out now." The cub charged with terrifying speed, a blur of black scales and fury. It leaped at Jackson's legs, jaws opening wide. Thalrix's finger hovered over the button. The cub's teeth clamped down on Jackson's boot. Jackson stopped walking. She looked down at the creature, hands on her hips, and made a sound that the translator couldn't interpret. A sharp, disapproving TSK, TSK, TSK. Then she pointed one finger at the ground and said, in a voice that somehow carried across the habitat, "No." The effect was instantaneous and inexplicable. The Corvath cub released her boot, its ears flattening against its skull. It backed up 2 steps, then sat down heavily on its haunches. A high-pitched whine emerged from its throat, a sound the preserve staff had never heard from a Corvath before. "What?" Mira breathed. "What did she do?" Jackson crouched down, still maintaining eye contact with the cub. She extended her hand slowly, palm up. "Good boy," she said, her voice softer now but still firm. "That's a good boy." The cub, this creature that had terrified, trained handlers for weeks, crawled forward on its belly. It pressed its massive head into Jackson's palm, the whining transforming into a rumbling purr. Thalrix's jaw hung open. This is impossible. Corvaths don't submit. They don't bond. They're pure predator. Jackson scratched behind the cub's ears, examining it with practiced efficiency. "He's not a predator," she called out, somehow knowing they were watching. "He's a scared baby who's been taken from his mother and doesn't understand what's happening. You've been treating him like a monster, so he's been acting like one." She stood up, and the cub stood with her, pressing against her leg. "Where I come from, we domesticated wolves, creatures that hunted in packs and saw us as prey. We turned them into companions. We befriended creatures far more dangerous than this little guy." "Little," Mira squeaked. Jackson walked toward the observation window, the Corvath cub trotting beside her like an oversized puppy. "Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to spend the next few weeks teaching him basic commands and socializing him properly. Then we're going to reassess his care protocols, because whatever you've been doing isn't working." Thalrix found his voice. "Miss Jackson, with all respect, you've been here for 5 minutes. You can't possibly." "I trained police dogs for 15 years before joining the Federation," Jackson interrupted. "I've worked with everything from Dobermans to wolves to a very grumpy bear that thought it owned my campsite. Trust me, Warden, I know what I'm doing." The cub sat down again at her gesture, looking up at her with what could only be described as adoration. "Besides," Jackson added with a slight smile, "humans have been the apex predators on our world for 200,000 years. We didn't get there by being the biggest or the strongest." She reached down and scratched the cub's chin. "We got there by being smart enough to make friends with the things that wanted to eat us." The Corvath cub's tail wagged. Thalrix slumped in his chair, his worldview fundamentally shaken. "Humans are terrifying," he muttered. "Yeah," Mira agreed, watching Jackson play with the deadly predator like it was a harmless pet. "They really are."